of standard law, then it must be just happening by chance and not by any intention or any plan. So in the Hugh-Everett interpretation of quantum physics, when there is a choice between two things, and there is infinite amount of choice, because this applies not only to my choice, a human choice, but the way an electron will be measured, or where it will go, and so on. So there are billions and billions, every second, billions of such a situation. And I don't know if you can imagine, but the Hugh-Everett interpretation says, well, all the possible things happens. Just it creates automatically. This is the multiverse version. Then if I could choose to eat a steak or to eat fish, then there are two worlds separating, one in which I eat steak and one in which I eat fish. There is a joke. Yeah, this reminds me, there is a joke. There are two scientists in an airplane, and in this airplane there is a problem. It has two motors, and one of the motors has some problem and stops. And then suddenly the other motor stops too. So they are in a very difficult situation. And one said to the other, okay, don't worry. There is surely one universe in which we even didn't take this plane. So, but it shows a little bit, in my opinion, it shows the absurdity of such a situation. And I was always interested in understanding how not only our free will can exercise, but we emphasize in the principle the importance of a human responsibility. And if there is no free will, there is no human responsibility. And so automatically any theory that eliminates this free will for me cannot be corresponding to the truth. Of course, it doesn't mean that anything that supports free will is acceptable. But oh no, this is not Andrew. It's not a lecture. It's a discussion. I'm just answering one question. Oh yeah.
Well, you have been going on for about 10 minutes, and
yeah, okay, but you were not visible. How many people are there? 15 people. Okay.
Are you the moderator?
Okay,
are you the moderator of this discussion here?
Yeah, somehow, yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
So, okay, I just finished the point that then when but I didn't know in which way it is possible that that our mind can influence our body. And then where I read Sir John Eccles, and then Sir John Eccles explained that the connection between neurons is something so tiny from space, from mass, that it is really subject to quantum physics and quantum physics laws. And therefore, and he has some idea how it can work. But anyway, whether this idea is the right one or not, we have still to maybe to prove. But I felt this is an opening to that way. Is Dr. I saw the Dr. Shipov is there?
He's on the phone. I see him.
On the phone?
Yeah.
Oh. I don't know if someone needs to approve that he can join, or if he missed to put the password or something.
No, I see him. I see his video is here.
Oh.
I just resend the link on the discussion. It's an open link with a password, so there's nothing special to join. Yeah.
Well, it's about 6 in the morning in New York, so I've been up all night. It's
yeah.
been quite exercise here to participate in this, but I'm really, really happy with all of the presentations. I hope that at some future conference, I'll be able to make a presentation on Reverend Moon's teaching about science, which so far nobody talks about. It's in the Woolly One Bun. But there was one presenter. Because of this format, I don't see people's name tags, so it's hard to remember who's who. But it was the fellow with the bald head. I think he had a Greek name.
Menakatos or something like
Menakatos.
that.
I think his position is very close to Reverend Moon's position, because he talks about interaction, and he talks about purpose, and the whole universe is full of interaction and resonance between different spheres. So I think Didier, when you start talking about nerves and things moving through the nerves, you are talking in the realm of sort of physical causality, but everything is interactive. So from a bigger picture, if you only look at things as a one-way forces like gravity, for example, gravity is not correct. It is a interaction. It is not just a force coming from one side to the other. There is always giving and receiving going on. So if at some point in the future I have an opportunity to share about these matters, I think it will be helpful, and it connects to Mr. Shipoff, because wherever there is giving and receiving, there is a rotation. There is rotation, circular motion. So there you can get torsion. Also, everything is composed of plus and minus, duality. So when Mr. Richard Lewis was talking about the waves and all of those particles composed of waves, cosines and sines that are plus and minus, and that also is very compatible with what I see as Reverend Moon's fundamental teaching about reality. So the duality within God, who's a being of plus and minus, male and female, connects by resonance with everything in the cosmos all the time through when there is plus and minus interactions, which is everywhere and everything. So at some point, I hope I can make a presentation about that. But I see one thing he doesn't talk about is in his presentation, and this goes back to the 1950s, so maybe he wasn't in his awareness. He wasn't talking about fields so much. So a lot of the presentations here have talked a lot about fields, and this is all very new and very interesting to me. I just wanted to make that short remark. Thank you.
Yeah, the problem I felt is that in 15 minutes, it's very hard to express anything. So I tried to pack too many things. If you were attentive to my lecture, I tried to introduce these two notions, of one of Sang-Sang, Yong-Sang, and the other of plus minus. But it was a short part, so that it was not so easy to express it.
Interestingly, in Reverend Moon's original teaching about science, he does not talk about Sang-Sang, Yang-Sang. You do not need to discuss Yang-Sang and Sang-Sang to understand science. At least, and I think one of the interesting issues for unificationists is that people have been operating with unification thought, which primarily talks about Sang-Sang and Yang-Sang. But in Reverend Moon's original teaching, in the principle, it's about much more important is a plus and minus as the structure of reality.
Well, it has a different purpose.
The
Sang-Sang, Yang-Sang is this is what brings this is the vertical relationship. And vertical relationship is a relationship of resemblance. So the Hyung Sang reflects the Sung Sang. So like the physical reflects the spiritual.
Yeah.
And so this is the meaning, like we should be in the image of God, resemblance to God. In the same time, we are different. And this is because of the yin yang, or the plus minus, because this is the creative part. Without plus minus, you cannot create anything. So that's why parents, father and mother, can create different children, because there are many different combinations of the plus minus, and this is power. And this reminds me of, there are speeches where Reverend Moon explained that God, being a vertical being, it took him so many billions of years to create the first being, but we can, within our life, create a lot of new beings.
But Didier, the issue in Reverend Moon's teaching about science is that God is plus and minus. So therefore, we use an analogy of parents. So God is male and female. Therefore, the resemblance to God is the resemblance of plus and minus in the vertical pole to plus and minus in the corporeal pole. They are one does not need to posit Sung Sang and Hyung Sang in order to have resemblance, because the teaching of resemblance is based upon the fact that we are in the image of God as male and female, plus and minus, the movement of the interaction of inhaling and exhaling arteries and veins everywhere in our bodies is all the image of God, because God's a being where there is love, and love is duality in interaction. And so that duality in interaction pervades the physical world, because God created the physical world in his image. So in Reverend Moon's original thought, it's not necessary to have the Sung Sang Hyung Sang business, which I think Dr. Lee developed mainly to deal with Aristotle and Plato and all those philosopher guys. But for scientists, it's a much more concrete to talk about the interaction between plus and minus. This is one of my things I learned recently in my study of Reverend Moon's teaching, which is not available in print. So therefore, it is still kind of a secret teaching.
Yeah, however, the first thing we have to build is a mind-body relationship in order to be able to accomplish the plus-minus.
Even the mind-body relationship is a relationship of resemblance between through giving and receiving, between images in the physical world and images in the mind, mediated through the brain, of course, but the brain is only a mediating function on the body side. Anyway, this I won't continue this discussion any longer.
Anybody? Okay, let's not monopolize. Anybody else wants to say something on that or on something else? Please, you can unmute. Huh?
Yeah, I would like to think about one subject that it was spoken about. They say one of the teachers, I don't remember the name, he said the disorder, the world, it doesn't go to disorder like entropy and the fading away, but it evolves to more and more order, which is somehow contrary to the entropy principle. That's why it seems to me very interesting, because there is order that is being created, but also the more there is order, the more it's somehow unstable, and it has to be corrected every time. You know, we just attended a few minutes ago to the launching of Thomas Pesquet and the SpaceX into the air. I just looked at the TV a few minutes ago, actually. So you know, you cannot just launch a rocket and then once it's launched, it will reach the goal. You have to correct every step, every moment. You have to correct. So to reach a goal, we need to correct. And I make a comparison also with the you know, climate change. Somehow before the climate went automatically and everything goes well, but now the climate is becoming unstable. So man must take care, must take the control, more and more control on the plants and you know, if we don't take control, it cannot go itself by itself. We have to take control and correct every time. This is also in our life. We have to correct our thought. We have to revise our conceptions all the time. You know, it cannot be launched and go alone automatically. We have to, the more it's complex, the more it has to be taken care of every time. Even the children, they grow, they have to be taken care of every moment so that the order can grow and continue.
Yeah, this is you are right. I spoke about unstable equilibria, which means, well, without difference, means without yang yin, without plus minus, nothing happened. That's what also that our American brother said just before. So you need to have differences. And the law of entropy is making this difference smaller, creating a flow between both. Yeah. But I would say physically, the plus and the minus comes somewhere in the middle. But spiritually, because of the love, the love is not something that get lost. If you give love to somebody, you are not losing something. It's not like when you are making efforts physically and giving energy, physical energy, and to make something, then this energy is invested in something else and disappear from you somehow. And you have to eat food again to regain energy. But in the spiritual realm is different. But that's why you need always to have, even in the physical world, you need to have always plus and minus. So like the sun, one day the sun will finish. But fortunately, it was built in such a way that it can take billions of years until it finishes. And there is still this, it is an unstable equilibrium because there is gravity which tends to push the sun into like almost a black hole. I mean, it would become not a black hole because there's not enough mass. But anyway, I think neutron star or something like that. And the opposite force with the nuclear reaction. And this is a continuous equilibrium, but which is unstable equilibrium because it must be always entertained somehow. Yeah. But this is everything for life also. We need arteries and veins. Everything is a balance, but a balance where there is always interaction.
I was going to say something, if it's okay.
Yeah, please.
Well, maybe I'm biased because I'm a student of Dr. Shipoff here.
Yeah.
But, you know, actually I was seeking basically the same thing he was since my childhood. And basically I was wondering what makes everything stay in the order. And it's got to be some kind of vertical. So actually, right when I heard about our divine principle, you know, the divine principle, which Reverend teaches. I felt like Einstein over my shoulders, and he said, "This is it," just when we mentioned the sung song. So it was this very point of the sung song which provides the answer for his theory.
Yeah, I'm convinced we need absolutely both aspects. We cannot conceive a world without both sung song, yang song, and plus minus. You cannot say, or we can, we don't need one or we don't need the other. We really need both. And
see, in this idea of physical vacuum, right? The way it works is that there's particles that are information field acts on them. They change their spin. It's a field that has no force and only information. And that one is the one that connects to our consciousness. It's very interesting. So they can't explain it. You know, in quantum physics, they can't explain that. But Dr. Shipov's theory explains it very well. See, I observed a lot of times when I was out there, you know, on the streets, I saw a lot of things where it made me really think. And I said, there's got to be some way that invisible stuff interacts with physical matter. This is very interesting. You know, it's something you can really see.
Well, physical matter is not just physical. It has a sung-song element, or it has an internal element to it. So
yeah,
they're not two separate realms. Matter is alive. Matter has life.
Yeah.
That sung-song element pervades all of space time. So this maybe is what Mr. Shipov's torsion field is getting us towards. The idea that even space and time has this inner dimension that is constantly rotating.
Yes,
this is fantastic.
You're right.
Oh, there he is, Dr. Shipov. Please go ahead, Dr. Shipov, if you want to explain.
Oh, yeah. I try to explain something in my work. My work in physical vacuum, the space-time has 10 dimensions. 10 dimensions. 4 dimensions, it is translational coordinates as in ordinary theories, general relativity, quantum mechanics, so on. And 6 coordinates are non-holonomic rotational coordinates. 6 coordinates, 3 angles of Euler, which describe rotation in the space, in the 3-dimensional space, and 3 angles in T space-time planes, 3 angles additional. And in this 10-dimensional space-time, we can describe not only translation, but rotation also. And first time in physics, in science, was introduced rotational coordinate, non-holonomic, without dimension, because the translational coordinate correspond to the distance and has dimension, but rotational coordinate angles not have dimension, not dimensional coordinates. And I wrote a book of Roger Penrose, new Nobel Prize laureate of Nobel Prize laureate last year. And in his his book, Path to the Reality, in the end of this book, he said such words: he means physicists, we miss something in physics, miss something very important. And I see from my work that we miss rotational coordinate as an element of space-time. You see, if we introduce rotation coordinate, we receive 10-dimensional space-time, which used string theory, for example. String theory already used such kind of space-times, but they don't say about additional dimension from physical point of view, what it means, additional 6 coordinate. But in theory of physical vacuum, I say this is angles, because the first time in science was introduced by Euler, introduced rotational coordinate, 3 rotational Euler's angles, so-called, and from time of Euler, there is no work in physics which use the rotational coordinate as elements of space-time. As parameters, maybe yes, but as a coordinates, no. And if we introduce such kind of coordinate in physics, we received new kind of space with new geometry. We received internal coordinates, and internal coordinates, this is angle, and in external coordinates, this is translational coordinates. And each point on translational coordinate, there are
William can help you.
Angular rotation coordinates. We have in this case stratification of the space, and this stratification describe more wider physical phenomena, because we don't use rotation, and we don't know about rotation many things, because in school, for example, and in university, in my Moscow State University, when we study general physics, yes, the rotation represents only one angle in the plane. But this is not, this is very simple case, and don't explain many phenomena when we have rotation not using not one angle, but 2, 3, and more. Many angles rotation. We can observe such phenomena like precision of rotational body, and
he's talking about when gyroscopes spin and they start going around like this, you know? That's what he's talking about. Precession.
Yeah, precision. And notation. If,
notation is when it kind of tilts like this.
Notation. And when solid body is free and has notation, the center of mass of this body and moves with acceleration, and this is laws of Newton mechanics in this case evaluated not satisfied. You can't use Newton mechanics in the case when we study the rotation using 3 angles, 3 axes and 3 rotation. It is not satisfied to laws of Newton mechanics. In this case, we have additional terms, additional laws. And Euler was not physicist. He was mathematician. And when he formulated the laws of rotation solid state, he write only analytically expression, but he don't say by what that there exist new laws when we have rotation. For example, if you have a gyroscope, for example, rigid body which rotate in the free space without another forces, this body can rotate many times without stop. You see, this is not first law of Newton mechanics, because in Newton mechanics we have translation, we describe translational motion. And in case of translational motion, the body can go and conserve his momentum if another external forces don't act on this body. But the same law we have in the case when body have a rotation. But when in the case of rotational solid body, it is another law different from the first law of Newton mechanics. Different, but in all textbook in university, and many scientists decided that the earlier mechanics of rigid body in the basis have Newton mechanics. Now we have new kind of mechanics, because in the mechanic of solid body we have three coordinates, coordinates translational. They describe the motion, the center of mass rigid body, and three coordinates which describe the orientation or rotation rigid body in the space. 6 coordinates and 6 equations, translational and rotational. And if we have many angles rotation rigid body, we have connection between translational equation of motion of center mass and with rotation. Rotation and translational motion, they connected each other, each other when the rotational is many angles, contain many angles. I wrote many articles on this theme, and I have made many presentation about this, but nobody, every scientist who to whom I speak about that, they don't believe in that, because they think it that, oh, Hailer and Shipov, the different people, and if Shipov is speak true, why Hailer don't say about this nothing? But I don't know why. Thank you.
I have one question to you.
Yes, yes.
What's it? You said that, okay, the 3-dimensional translation, 3-dimension rotational, and then 3 in space-time. What's the difference between the 3
oh, yes, I understand.
angles and the 3 in
yes,
space-time?
We know the space rotational. It's very simple, yes. But when we use 4-dimensional translational space-time, you have the system of reference, in this case, have 10 degrees of freedom. In the 3-dimensional space, a rigid body has 6 degrees of freedom, 6. But in 4-dimensional case, you have 10-dimensional. And six angular. If you know special theory relativity, in special theory relativity, we have four-dimensional reference frame, and we have additional angle, which the additional angles between vector t and space vector. For example, x vector axis x and axis t. Between axis t axis x, we have an angle. And,
okay.
and in the sum, we have three angles: x, t, z, t, y, t.
Yeah, this means added, if I understand well. In the 3 dimension, you have three different planes, in which you have 3 different angles. But if you add the time dimension with each of these other dimension creates three new angles. Yeah, okay. Or if we start from 4, then it makes altogether 6 more degrees of freedom. Okay.
And Einstein general relativity don't contain information about angles. Don't contain, because the Einstein equation, my teacher, he don't use angular coordinates, only for translational coordinates. And also the main problem of Einstein theory from my point of view is the Einstein tried to create theory which was covariant for translation between accelerating system of reference. Yes, but we know that in accelerating system of reference, there are forces of inertia.
For what?
Forces of inertia.
Forces of inertia.
Oh, yes, forces of inertia. And if we use the equation of motion, so-called geodesics line in Einstein theory, and use the corresponding physics and transform this equation from general relativity to the Newton limit, we receive equation of motion of Newton mechanics. Equation of motion, but equation of motion of Newton mechanics, they wrote in the inertial frame of motion. If we rewrite the equation of motion Newton mechanics from one system to accelerated system, you receive additional forces of inertia, but Einstein theory don't correspond to the equation of motion which use the forces of inertia. So the Einstein theory don't describe fields of inertia, no force of inertia, no fields of inertia. You see, and yeah, I developed the Einstein theory of gravitation and general theory relativity, and introduced additional rotational coordinates. And as a result, I received forces of inertia, and I received the method, a tool to describe field of inertia. Field of inertia, this is a new fundamental physical field. We have, from my point of view, we have only now 3 fundamental physical fields. This is gravitational field, electromagnetic field, and now field of inertia. Why fundamental? Because every day, each from us connected with these three fields. We feel gravitational field through the weight, yeah, through the weight every day. Don't thinking about it, about this, but every day, each of us, we feel only three fields in our life. Gravitational field through the weight, electromagnetic field through the light, and field of inertia through the forces of inertia. We know in mechanics, 4 forces of inertia, 4. And you in childhood, you know the centrifugal force of inertia, simplest force of inertia, but we have 4 forces of inertia. And before, in Russia, for example, in Russian Academy of Science, we have many discussion about what is forces of inertia, what is the source of forces of inertia. There are many different point of views, but this is the main, I think that now in this time, the main question of physics to investigate forces inertia and field of inertia which create these forces.
These forces of inertia, you said, so the three other is more like the translation, I mean the translation forces?
Because no, translation forces, they used only for description of translation forces. You use only translational coordinate, X, Y, Z, CT. But if you want, in mechanics, you can see in mechanics, if you want to introduce forces of inertia in mechanics, you need to use rotational coordinate, which differ from translational. Differ for many properties, because rotational coordinate is anholonomic, non-holonomic. Translational is holonomic, and you can't receive rotational coordinate from translational. This is another kind of coordinate. On the rotational coordinate, another group of translation works, not translation group work. For example, group of rotation acts on the rotational coordinates. On the group translation, we have group translational group. The translational group and rotation, they differ very strongly. Different group of translation. So, what is the question?
So, maybe, so this means because translational inertia is only one direction. I mean, the way it is, the body is moving.
No, one direction. We have 4 forces of inertia. Yeah. One of them, the force of inertia which appear where you have, for example, uniform acceleration. When you sitting in the plane and plane began to fly, and the acceleration in this case very strong, and you feel, your body feel the acceleration force. This acceleration force described by translation, but this translation we can represent as a rotation is in space-time angles. Rotation in space-time angles create the translational acceleration. You see? You see, three forces generated by rotational is space-time, forces of inertia, and one force of inertia, translational, created by rotation in space-time angles. Without
There's
formula.
another aspect about your theory that's really interesting, that the theory also comes up with information fields, which are faster than light.
Yeah. I have no time to say about this because I...
Don't worry about time, because we have not now limited time. We can have this Zoom for 2 hours, so feel free to express.
And because on my first slide, I show the structure of the reality in the theory of physical vacuum. And first of all, I told about material world, and I have no time to say about worlds of highest reality, about absolute nothing, and about spiritual world, because these words have analytically description in theory of physical vacuum. Yes, and in the case of spiritual world, we have equations which describe objects without energy. There are in physical vacuum objects which have no energy at all. Energy, as we understand in the material world, energy is probability, possibility to make a work. If body have a possibility to make a work, this body has energy. But there is in the physical vacuum objects which have no such kind energy, no have energy in all thinking. But we have equations. If we have equations, we can investigate, we can receive the solution of these equations, and it means that there are any object in the world which describe this solution without energy. And I think that this object, they have a velocity differ from velocity of light, and maybe more bigger, and maybe they have infinity velocity. And in this case, we receive the нарушение, скажи мне. Violation of classical principle of causality. If the velocity of light bigger, if the velocity of signal bigger than the velocity of light, we have violation of classical principles of causality.
Causality.
Yes. Causality. And in 1930, Einstein have a meeting with Rabindranath Tagore in Berlin, and after this meeting, they discuss about God. There is God or no? But Rabindranath Tagore, yes, his point of view, God creates this world. God creates. But Einstein, he was materialist in this time. He said, no, there is only reality. But when After that, Einstein published an article which called Religion and Science. Religion and Science. And in this article, he wrote such words: if God exists, we can observe valuation of classical principle of causality. You see? But in Russia, we have some experiment which made by different groups, scientists, which show us that there is signals bigger than, with velocity bigger than the velocity of light. 3 groups of science in Pulkovo, in St. Petersburg, in Novosibirsk, and in Crimea. And these articles was published in the Proceedings of Russian Academy of Science. Maybe already 30 years ago, but nobody discussed this phenomena. I know that in the astrophysics we observed the signals more bigger. Oh yes, Novosibirsk. You from Novosibirsk, Bernard? Ah, no. Yes.
No, I was there actually.
This is very important. You see, for us, it is very important. If we observe the signals bigger than velocity of light, it means not direct, but I don't know how to say.
Just say it in Russian. I can translate it for them.
Косвенное доказательство существования Бога.
It's an indirect proof of the existence of God.
Indirect proof.
Indirect.
Oh yes, indirect. In the proof that God exists. If we find the signals more bigger than velocity of light, this is very important. And first say about this, Albert Einstein in 1930, after meeting with the Rabindranath Tagore. Pay your attention, please, on this fact.
They don't want to believe that.
Yes, and if theoretically, in a theory of physical vacuum, we have signals.
You know, this announcement is really incredible because this is very big.
Yeah. We have signals more than velocity of light, equal velocity of light, of course, less than velocity of light, and also we have a motion indirect to time. Back to time.
Oh, backwards in time.
Yeah.
Well, that's what worries me, actually. I don't need to.
Don't worry.
No, I don't need to have signal beyond the speed of light to believe in God.
Yeah.
But I am.
Indirect proof. Yeah.
Well, my whole philosophy is based on the idea that we are responsible for our action. And this has only a meaning if time is flowing only one direction, from past to the future.
No, this is very old theory. This is old theory. And I know that there are many experiments, not one, which show us that there is a velocity signal which moves with the velocity more bigger than the velocity of light. Yes, and no in the future, but in the past, not in the future. And these phenomena connected with the consciousness of many people. People consciousness connect with the signals which can go in the past, not in the future. And with the velocity more bigger than the velocity of light. And now this theme is forbidden, ordinary science, yes, orthodoxal science, but we have already theories and experiments which told us that such physics exist, and now such physics will develop, and very quickly, because our consciousness play very important very important role in our world, very important, even consciousness of people. Yeah.
Yeah, people just don't want to deal with it. It's like in science, it's supposed to be seeking the truth, but they somehow block their mind completely.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the point is such a signals, but have they some physical aspect? This is the question.
Physical aspect, yes.
Or is this just spiritual?
You remember, I listened here in a report about entanglement of quantum function. Yes, entanglement. The information in this case moves with the velocity more bigger than the velocity of light. Entanglement. This is another example of indirect existence of God. You see, but we use this phenomena, and there are many experiments which prove that this exists. And first physicist who say about this problem was Albert Einstein and his people, Nathan Rosen. Nathan Rosen and Einstein, and Avril also, but Avril not what was a pupil of Einstein. But I have a meeting with the pupil of Nathan Rosen in Israel, Moshe Carmeli. He developed a very famous method in general theory of relativity, so-called formalism of Newman and Penrose formalism. And he developed this formalism, and I used this mathematical tool for creation of theory of physical vacuum. This is school of Einstein. Einstein, Nathan Rosen, Moshe Carmeli, and people. This is school of Einstein. This is.
But actually, you know, if you
only school of Einstein take physics forward. Only school. There is no another schools, because if you know maybe about works, no, for example, Sabina Hossenfeld. Sabina Hossenfeld, they wrote many critical books about modern science, because we have no result many years. Only mathematical expression, no, only mathematical exercises. No, for example, if we take a theory of a string, for example, these people who try to create such theory, they say that we can use this theory maybe after 150 years. Not now, 150 years. They don't try to explain new phenomena in our life, but this phenomena, there are many experiments on the table, not in the accelerators, big accelerators, on the table, For example, experiments of Nikola Tesla, which they have no explanation inside of modern physics. And many theoreticians, I know, they don't know about this experiment, and they don't want to know about this experiment. It's trouble. Don't want to know about these experiments, because in this case, they must to take a answer how it's work, how it's happened, and so on. You see, this is a reality. This is a reality. I know I know many physicists in Russia, theoreticians, which don't want to listen about experiments which don't satisfy the laws which describes modern physics. Yes, this is, and it's connected with our consciousness. You may know many mathematical, physical, scientific works, and but consciousness maybe you're not so high, and you close your eyes on and don't say about very wonderful, interesting things.
You get a hard time if you try to say
very
those
convenient,
things.
very convenient.
So, has anybody some questions or some commentary or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you one small question.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Higgs boson or the quarks and gluons,
Mm-hmm.
which one is more responsible for the weight?
Oh, yeah, I don't like standard model. Why? The standard model, this is a phenomenological theory. Einstein said about such kind of theories. These theories not fundamental theories. They, давай, переводи, здесь очень трудно. Можешь переводить?
Да, хорошо.
Да. Значит, он говорил, что феноменологические теории занимаются тем, что постепенно приспосабливаются к экспериментальным данным.
This is basically basically phenomenological science or empirical science is only based on empirical data, and it's always can only be supported by. It just basically feeds back into the experimental data itself, and so they're using the data and putting it into the theory, and they're calling it a theory, but it's not really a theory. It's just based on experiments.
Они носят временный характер.
Yeah, you mean there is no logical concept behind it. Just they have experienced something and then they put it as a theory, but there is no logical explanation.
Стандартная модель, простейшая, имеет около 20 подгоночных параметров.
The standard model has about at least 20 just fudge factors.
20 what?
Fudge factors. They're just coefficients that are stuck in there because they work.
Okay.
Yeah. And каждый раз, когда стандартная модель открывает что-то новое, что не входит в ее описание, она просто добавляет дополнительный параметр подгоночный.
So whenever the standard model or experimenters find some new experimental evidence, they just simply add that to the model, but it doesn't they don't actually improve their logical understanding of anything.
Философ Карл Поппер сказал о таких теориях, что они Нефальсифицируемые. Такие теории нефальсифицируемые, а значит, они не являются научными.
So he said, Karl Popper was saying that a true scientific theory has to be falsifiable, but the theories they're making are not falsifiable.
Yeah. Они не являются научными.
So they're not really scientific.
И носят временный характер.
They're just temporary. They're kind of like makeshift.
А я занимаюсь как раз теорией, которая носит фундаментальный характер.
So Dr. Shipov's theory basically goes right down to the core, and he makes the model and then builds everything up from there. It's deductive.
Поэтому ответ мой такой. Я не могу верить всем тем разработкам, которые получает, вот, допустим, получается бозон Хиггса. Он использует, с моей точки зрения, модель спонтанного нарушения симметрии вакуума.
So he doesn't really respect the ideas like the Higgs boson, and it's just based on, I'm sorry, I missed part of what he said, but it's also just experimental character without really proving anything.
Но эта модель тоже феноменологическая. Она не следует ниоткуда. Она написана руками. Руками написана.
It's kind of artificially made, and it's not based upon any fundamental understanding.
Поэтому я просто не знаю, как можно использовать инструмент, например, который совершенно не имеет научного как бы обоснования. Этот инструмент, стандартная модель, она не является фундаментальной, поэтому я не занимаюсь, я не могу. В такой теории можно придумать все, что угодно, и это все сойдет.
So basically the standard model, as he sees it, is just a collection of observations which don't really fit together. It's kind of like stuck together or pasted together, but it can't be really called a theory as such.
Yes. Поэтому, извини, я не знаю. Мой ответ, я не знаю. Там сделать можно все, что угодно. Вот все, что хотите, можно там объяснить. Там нет критериев.
You can pretty much put in anything you want in there, and so he doesn't really like that kind of standard model.
What is in the torsion field theory? What is then the cause of mass? Because if I understood well, he doesn't agree with this idea that the boson, Higgs boson, would be the cause of mass. But what is this theory about the mass, existence of mass?
Yeah, in the theory of physical vacuum, mass is a measure of rotation inside of this mass. I have a formula which shows us that the mass is a measure of field of inertia from which this body consists. Because I used for field of inertia. The field of inertia, this is the field of matter. Maybe I can say field of matter is field of inertia. Density of mass depends on the field of inertia inside of the body in this theory. And if we can control the rotation, if we can control the rotation inside the body, we can control forces of inertia inside of body. And control forces of inertia inside of body, we can move without jet engine in the space. No, you have a device. Inside this device, you have a rotation, something, and if we will control the rotation inside a spacecraft, for example, yes, we can move in space without jet engine, like UFO, like UFO. I think that the UFO using the knowledge about forces and field of inertia for his motion. Forces of inertia and field of inertia. Because we observe how the UFO moves. They move rectangly and then quickly change his way, maybe 19 degrees inside and 19 degrees up and down. They can control the inertia. We can control the inertia because maybe you know the cosmonaut, astronaut in the centrifuge. In the centrifuge, when the acceleration became very big, when the angular velocity very big, the cosmonaut inside of centrifuge feel very strong force, centrifugal force of inertia, very strong. And if this force equal to 10G, people and man can lose his consciousness. You see? And I know also that when one cosmonaut told me that one day he was in centrifuga and his consciousness go out from his mind and he saw himself from the outside. You see? Yes. Yes. It shows us that our consciousness connected with the field of inertia. Our consciousness, field of inertia, this is wave function of quantum mechanics. Consciousness connect with the quantum mechanics, and we have, in this case, a logical way. Consciousness connect with the quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics connect with the forces of inertia and field inertia. And field of inertia play a very important role in our world, very important. And we must pay attention on this field. This is a new field. It was opened in equation of theory of physical vacuum.
I have. Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're our hero.
Yeah. I like to come back to the question of speed more than light. Because you gave this example of entanglement, so I thought about it, and everything that has a mass cannot even reach the speed of light. Yeah, we agree. At the speed of light, you can transfer energy, like a photon can go to the speed of light, and you can transfer energy. So does it mean that everything that goes beyond the speed of light could maybe transfer information, but no energy or no mass?
Yes, yes, you are right.
Okay.
You are right. We have a tool for describing on informational fields. Informational fields described by new kind of object in theory of physical vacuum. Yes. And we also describe the imaginary mass, not only negative, positive mass, but imaginary mass, tachyons. You know about something tachyons. This is particle who moves with the velocity bigger than the velocity of light. But also we can describe negative masses, because if we took our attention on the theory of Big Bang, in this theory, we have only positive masses. But if all universe created from vacuum, in this theory, they say that universe created from vacuum. My question is, where is negative mass? Because in another case, we find the violation of conservation law because there is no negative mass. Where? And they who study this theory, they say that yes, we have no conservation law in this theory, but we study and we study and we will be study in the future this theory. Very simple question. Kill this theory. Where is the conservation law in this theory? You can read some articles. There is no conservation law in theory of a Big Bang. No, at all. No words, no words. No.
Haven't we come to about 2 hours now somehow?
Yeah.
Because actually, this is extremely interesting, and I might go all night.
I mean, I have no duty of time schedule. You know, when we have the Club Science in Paris,
yeah.
So we start usually about 2:30 in the afternoon.
Wow.
We have one lecture for 1 hour until 3:30. Then we have question answer to the lecturer. And then about 4 o'clock we have a break, and then we come back together, and it's free. And sometimes I have to chase the people at 7 p.m. because I have to close and go back home. But it depends. It's a free ending, yeah. So when there are no more people, then we end. Okay, I have to. This night I will attend ICUS, so I don't want to go through the whole afternoon.
I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning, and it's already like about 8 o'clock at night.
I should like to say that two great French scientists, which work I used, René Descartes, and Élie Cartan, mathematician Élie Cartan, and physicist, philosopher René Descartes, because they say, René Descartes said that everything is in rotation. Everything is rotation. And now I prove in my theory, yes, everything is rotation. My prove this hypothesis maybe. And Élie Cartan, he introduced in science torsion field. He said in 1922 in article said that rotation of any matter creates torsion field. Rotation, physical rotation, any matter create torsion field. He is right, and I prove my work that he is right, and he predict my theory. But he was mathematician. He don't develop this hypothesis. But now I used his hypothesis and proved that rotation of any kind of matter creates torsion field, new kind field, torsion field.
You know, Reverend Moon often spoke, and he said, if you send energy in a straight line, then this energy is lost because it doesn't come back. So the only way to entertain energy, to keep on energy, is by rotation. he says that he is not especially a scientist or so. He sees this from a more spiritual and philosophical viewpoint, from revelation he got. But he always says that he also explained that in the, you know, I say in the martial arts, yeah, there are many martial arts, they go straight and so on, but the best martial arts are with movement only with rotation. It gives more power when you do martial art with rotation. And though he was at the origin of a new martial art which is called Won Wado.
Yeah, all animals experiment. Animals, да, аномальные. Most animals experiments in physics connected with rotation. And I know. And we have real devices which use rotation for creation of so-called free energy. Free energy, for example, in the United States, there is an engine which calls F engine. The F engine rotate many, maybe 4 months already without stop, and create.
Sorry, I didn't understand what kind of engine? Air engine or what?
F, Земля.
What is
Earth? It's an Earth.
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 The Earth is round.
He rotates 4 months
so based
without
on what?
stop.
On the rotation of the Earth, or based on what, this energy?
Yeah, and create 25 kilowatt electro energy. 25 kilowatt of energy. 4 months without stop.
Based on the energy rotation energy? Oh.
No,
when you say Earth engine.
No, it will be work without in the space.
On the ground. Okay. Okay.
You can see. You can use the computer and find Earth engine. You can see 25 kilowatt of energy. And it is only the beginning. There are many other things. I have no time because now